Let's welcome the managing editor at Philadelphia Baseball Review, Patrick Gordon, back to Philly Pressbox Radio. Patrick, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great to be here.
Good to see you once again, Patrick. We got you on a good week as far as the Phillies are concerned. Man, what a turnaround. Over the past week and a half, very similar to what happened when Rob Thompson took over for the fired Joe Girardi 4 years ago. The Phillies now are 7-1 under interim manager Don Mattingly. I mean, the players are the same guys as they were a couple of weeks back, but all of a sudden, most of them are playing much better than they did over the first 28 games. How do you explain something like that happening?
Baseball is a funny game, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think part of it, honestly, this team was too good to come out of the gate the way they did, right? They were underperforming, obviously. I think the schedule easing up, obviously, has had something to do with it as well. Again, I think it comes down to the roster. Now you're starting to see starting pitching, performing like we thought it would. The bullpen performing like we thought it would. Bryce Harper, Bryson Stott the last couple nights doing great things at the plate. Yeah. I think you're starting to see sort of the team come alive. It's a shame it cost Thompson his job. I don't think he was the reason for it, but I think, again, there has to be a sacrificial lamb, right? And I think he was the one there.
Patrick, I think something is really concerning to me. We'll get to Alec Bohm because obviously that's concerning, but Kyle Schwarber hitting just 205. He has struck out 51 times and 132 official at-bats. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it's very hard to do. I mean, just the other night, he was approaching, I think it was 9 straight strikeouts, which would have, tied or came close to the franchise record. Look, it's not ideal at all, right? I mean, we want to see Schwarber put those, moonshots into the second deck and hopefully play in the home run derby. But on the same hand, we have to also kind of, take the good with the bad here. And, last year, I think he did a little bit with the swing, worked on obviously upping his average and, putting ball in play a little bit more. Again, I think things will even out for him. I think he's better than where he's at now. The power's still clearly there. I think it's just putting the ball in play and making contact. Again, I think it's still early on. But look, we had such high expectations for this team. It makes total sense for everybody to think the sky's falling based on how poorly they started. So everybody's under the microscope. Plus, you think about, the window of opportunity that everybody speaks about. This is it, guys. Like, I don't know how this team – let's assume there's going to be a lockout next year. I don't know how this team looks in 2027. I mean, we know who all the players are going to be almost based on payroll and contracts, but how are they going to perform at that age? Age is a problem now. What's it going to be in 2 years, right?
Right. Exactly. Hey, I want to get back to Don Mattingly. I don't know how much a manager has to do with a team's success or failure, but sometimes when you make a change like this, it does kind of inspire the players to maybe work a little harder. But he has actually made a couple of changes. He seems to be really stressing fundamentals more. And we've seen actually a few more bunts, some hit and runs, some stolen base attempts.
Yeah, I'm down there quite regularly, and you're down on the field pregame, and you see they're doing PFPs, they're working on bunts, they are going back to more fundamentals, and I think that's important, right? I think, again, I don't blame Rob for anything that has transpired, but I do think having a new manager in here, having it be Don Mattingly, right? Let's also, keep that, in the, level of importance that it is, because it's not some just guy off the street. I think that matters. And I think it kind of puts people in a spot like, oh, I now need to get my act together and I need to start, doing a little bit more. Maybe, I don't want to say people are doing it, but maybe some guys were going through the motions a little bit or not putting, 110% in. And now you get a new sheriff in town, you kind of have to do that.
Yeah, I think I actually said this before it happened, that the thing that was going to get Rob Thompson fired wasn't the pitching, it wasn't the hitting, it was the base running and the fielding. Yeah. It was the fundamentals that they weren't doing that you have to do to win. To me, that was the dagger that got him.
Well, and the other problem is in this division. I mean, look, we knew the Braves were going to be really, really good. They dealt with injuries a lot last year. The hole that the Phillies built for themselves, you're still looking at 9.5, 10 games out. And it's going to be tough to, I think, make that up. I think realistically, you're looking at a team that's 85 wins, probably looking at one of those wild card spots, battling for it, unless they rip off some, crazy amount of wins, which is possible with this roster. But the offense scares me, right? It's just so, hit or miss, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
We mentioned the rotation, so good most of last year. And then this year, not off to a great start.
Yeah.
Sanchez, even though his ERA was low, he didn't look quite the same. But now all of a sudden, he's looking like the guy who was, in fact, the Cy Young runner-up last year. Zach Wheeler is back. Aaron Nola with a good outing.
Yeah.
Finally, Luzardo been terrific the last couple of days. Are you happy with this rotation? How can you not be, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is how they're going to win, right? I mean, in the postseason, as much as you're going to rely on offense, pitching is what's going to carry you. And so I think having a veteran starting staff of guys that for the most part, are reliable, what you're going to get out of them, is going to be huge. I will be honest, though, Wheeler does scare me a little bit. Coming back from this injury, he's up there a little bit in age. I wrote a little bit about this, how it kind of feels Rui Holiday-ish when he came back. And we all remember when Rui Holiday came back after injury. And remember those games where he just looked drenched in sweat. He looked exhausted. He didn't have it anymore. Thankfully, Wheeler's put together some solid starts right out of the gate. But come August, September, what's that going to look like for him? We'll see. But even so, if Nola can keep the ball in the ballpark, if Luzardo can continue on the trend that he's, showcased here, Painter, again, he's supposed to be a number 5, right? He's a rookie. We can't expect the moon from him, but if he can continue to be serviceable, I like this rotation. You got to think too, the postseason, it's shorter anyway, right? I mean, all 5 guys won't be pitching. So, I do like where the rotation's at. However, health and depth is a concern, right? If there's an injury or two, unfortunately, the way this farm system looks, there's not a whole lot of help coming up.
Yeah. I thought this was going to be a bit of a breakout season for Alec Bohm and for Bryce Stott. Both just haven't played up to the level that I was thinking they were going to. Bohm, he's got some personal issues going on that I'm sure are weighing on him. But how much can we do here? I mean, he's not hitting for averages. He's not hitting for power either. He's playing decent defense, but at some point, something's got to give.
No, I think if you take a look in the National League at wins above average, third base, the Phillies ranked dead last, and it's not even close. And again, you want to keep thinking that, all right, last night or the night before, he had hard contact and, he's turning it around, and he gets the walk off the other day with the doubleheader, and you just keep thinking it's 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back, and at this point he's not. I don't believe at this point that he's part of their long-term plans. I don't think they're going to be interested in bringing him back because he's going to demand, I'm sure, whether you like it or not, production-wise, he's going to demand a sizable contract in the free agent market. I think. I don't really know what more he can do aside from just continuing to put the work in, put the ball in play. And, I don't know how much the personal stuff is weighing on him. I would have to think it has to be, right? I mean, it's your mom and dad, your finances. It's not like you can just block that out. I know a lot of people think, oh, they're pro athletes, they can do that. Yeah. These guys, they're just like us. They can't just block stuff out. It doesn't work that way. As for Bryce Stott, I think Bryce Harper had some comments about this yesterday. I think if you give him a chance every day and you get out of this platoon situation, give him a chance to play every day. His glove is close to being a Gold Glover, right? We know defensively he's solid. It's just with the bat. We need to see him again perform and be better basically at the plate. Again, we have so many guys in this lineup that are streaky, and that's part of the problem. And that's why I think the Phillies are going to have to win a lot of games 2-1 or 3-2. And you'll have your couple games where they'll put up 9, 10, 11 runs, but you need the starting pitching. You need the starting pitching.
Well, one guy who's been playing really well offensively is the guy who used to be elite and maybe elite again, Bryce Harper. What do you make of his resurgence over the last couple of weeks?
I'd love to see it. I think he is going to, if he continues on this trend, I think absolutely all-star game. I mean, come on. Can we picture how Philly-esque everything's going to be that Harper's going to do all-star weekend, in that game, and all the fanatic regalia and who knows what else he's going to pull out, right? I know some people love it, some people hate that, but No, it's good to see. Again, I think he took it personally what Dombrowski said about being elite. And I think some of that was taken out of context. I don't know if Dombrowski meant what he said the way he said it at the time. But it's good to see. I mean, look, without him, this team isn't the last couple of years isn't where it was, right? We're not competing for World Series. We're not competing for division titles. He's a leader in that clubhouse, and he does, command pitchers, face this lineup differently. So he needs to continue doing what he's doing, especially when you have guys like Schwarber and some of the others in the lineup that may be struggling a bit.
We're talking about all this stuff, and the one guy is playing so well, we're not even talking about him, and that's Brandon Marsh.
Yeah.
He's up to 322. I saw a thing the other day. Now, it's a few days old now, so I'll just go from my memory. But he had played in like the last 150 games from the time he got called back up last year after getting sent down through a couple days ago when this thing was written. Marsh is hitting like 320, 318 or 320 over basically a full season of 150 games. Man, he's really turned it around, and talk about not platooning anymore. He's hitting lefties and righties. He's doing a great job.
Yeah. And he's one of those guys where, for you to compete, you need players like him that bring sort of a spark, bring some energy, can make a great defensive play, can come through with that clutch hit. He's not somebody that you necessarily need to hide down in the bottom of the order. He does bring a touch of power, and he puts the ball out in play. No, I think he's the sort of player you need to, be a good team, right? Brandon Marsh is one of those guys that sort of is a glue guy, and you need them. As long as he continues to, hit from both sides and perform defensively, I think he has a home here. I think he's going to be fine.
Hey, Patrick, I just want to say something right now that's going to make me happy, make me smile. The team with the worst record in the major leagues right now, 13-22, is the New York Mets. How the hell does Carlos Mendoza still have a job?
Wow. Yeah. Well, I look, it's very similar to Philadelphia, right? Where you can take a look at the roster composition and how that team was built and put together. I think they're going to turn around. I don't think they're as bad as they're performing. I just think it's one of those things where they can't get out in front of themselves. They just keep tripping over their own feet. I do think they're going to be competitive again. That very easily could have been us. Very easily could have been us. It is, I'm sure, for many Philly fans, though, good to see that our neighbors to the north are struggling. It'll be fun when they come down here to Citizens Bank Park in a couple weeks.
Patrick, how in were you, speaking of the Mets, on the Bo Bichette deal that we didn't get? To me, I think we dodged a bullet. I'm quite happy we didn't open the vault for Bo Bichette, and so far, it's way, way, way too early this year yet to make a judgment. But I'm not upset that we didn't get Bichette. How about you?
No, I mean, excellent player. I do think the Phillies were used as leverage. I don't know how serious Bichette was about ever coming here. I do know the Phillies did make the offer. I don't know. Can you imagine this fan base, though? If Bichette was here, they spent, what a $200 million, $215 million, whatever it was, and they still were performing as poorly as they were. I mean, they'd be burning down Citizens Bank Park, right? So, no, I kind of agree, but I don't think what you're seeing right now is him in totality, right? I mean, he is a good player. He's an all-star player. I think he's going to perform. I just think he's off to a terrible start. But remember, Soto did the same thing up in New York, if I recall. He got off to a brutal start. So that's also a city where you're coming from Toronto, right? And then coming to New York, it's a little bit different. The microscope's on you and everything you do is scrutinized. So, coming into that team in that clubhouse, expectations for them also through the roof. That's a challenge.
Patrick, we may get back to more Phillies talk in a bit, but I want to talk about your website, the Philadelphia Baseball Review, which is really a terrific site. Phillies stories, of course, but you also do a lot on youth baseball, local college baseball, Phillies baseball history as well. Yeah. In fact, let's see, you just posted this story, I think this morning. It's about the fact that Philly, for the first half of the last century, was a two-team baseball city, the Phillies and the Athletics. And because it was so long ago, I think most fans don't realize that Connie Mack's A's were pretty damn successful, winning 5 World Series titles. That's a great piece, Patrick.
No, I appreciate that. No, one of the things that I always have tried to do, even in my time at the Philadelphia Daily News, was to really push, like, the Phillies are going to get the coverage, but where else in the margins can baseball be promoted, and can we share this history? And it's unfortunate. I don't know if anyone's been in the Cadillac Club at Citizens Bank Park. They've remodeled it, and it's beautiful. All kinds of Phillies memorabilia and great stuff. But last year, and for several years, there was a lot of Philadelphia Athletics memorabilia in there as well. You go in there now, it's all gone. It's all taken out. And, similar to the Negro Leagues and the history that Philadelphia has there, I just want to make sure that people are aware, like, there was baseball before the Phillies. Some of these teams were great. You think about 1929 to 31, those Philadelphia A's teams, the A's teams early in the early 1900s that were really good. There's a lot of players, a lot of storylines that I think need to be told, shared, and understood. And I really try to make sure that gets out there. I mean, players like Jimmy Fox and Mickey Cochran, Al Simmons, Bing Miller, Lefty Grove. You talk to people, they're like, I don't know any of these people, who they are. And yet many of them spent most, if not all, of their career in Philadelphia. And that team was really good for decent chunks of time. I know there were some really lean years with the A's, but yeah, and it's interesting too. I have another piece that'll be going up in the coming days. What would Philly look like if we still had them? Where would that stadium be in the city, right? What would that look like? So it's just something I've always kind of wanted to, I'm passionate about, wanted to make sure people were aware of.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Negro Leagues too, and I'm going way back before my time, but I can remember my dad, who grew up in Darby, Pennsylvania, and there was a big Darby team.
Yeah,
Hilldale, I believe.
Yep. Hilldale, yep.
Yeah, Hilldale from right down there in Darby. I always remember my dad talking about that.
Yep. Yeah, Hilldale, again, a great team. They actually played in the first two Negro World Series and won it in 1924. They first played in 1923 against the Kansas City Monarchs, which many people know was a team that was famous for Jackie Robinson, Satchel Paige, and many, many other players. So, yeah, Hilldale was an outstanding organization that was formed, I want to say 1917, became professional shortly thereafter and played up until the early 1930s. Philadelphia was a hotbed for Negro League baseball. A lot of teams were in this area, a lot of great players. For example, and although we didn't play for a Philly team, Roy Campanella grew up in Nicetown and, famous for his time with the Brooklyn Dodgers and everything that he did, Hall of Famer. He started playing in the Negro Leagues down for the Baltimore Elite Giants. So there's a lot of history that relates to Negro League baseball and everything here in Philly. And again, I'm just so passionate about that and youth getting involved in the sport. That's what the Philadelphia Baseball Review is all about, bringing together that baseball ecosystem into one place. So, yeah, we have the Phillies coverage, and I'm down there. I'm credentialed and all that, but I'm also going to tell you about what's going on with St. Joe's or with Jefferson or with Arcadia or Widener or Westchester. The list goes on.
And guys, if I'm not mistaken, the Hillsdale club that you were talking about, Bill, they were just inducted into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame at their most recent induction ceremony in November.
Yes, absolutely. Hey,
all right,
Patrick,
back to the Phillies.
Hang on, I got one more thing for Patrick, since we're talking local stuff.
Yeah.
Did you Kevin McGonigal from Bonner is making a big bang in the big leagues, just 21 years old. Got to see him down here in Lakeland during spring training with the Tigers. Did you get to see Kevin during his high school days? He's the real deal.
Oh, he's absolutely the real deal. And, I think it's incredible for Philadelphia to have another guy in the show that is performing at such a high level. And I actually wrote about this a couple of weeks ago, where it would be amazing to see him rookie playing in the All-Star game here in Philly. I mean, what a storyline that would be.
That's going to happen. It looks like, unless
I believe. Yeah, no, I believe so. I mean, so that's just an awesome storyline. And I think it's interesting too. Look at the contract the Tigers just gave him, right? And so you think, all right, well, what does that mean for the Phillies now with Crawford and Painter and, the future of what major league teams do with these younger guys that, maybe are unproven, but have the pedigree to be a top player? What are they going to do? You see now a lot of teams are starting to sign these guys much, much younger, and even when they're unproven. So I think McGonigal falls in that, but yeah, he's been awesome, and he's a great guy. I've gotten to speak with him a bunch of times, and it should be a lot of fun if he's here in Philly in July.
So please make sure you check out the website, Philadelphia Baseball Review. Lots of terrific stuff on there. Now, regarding the Phillies, I do want to ask you again, Patrick. We mentioned they're 9.5 behind Atlanta. The Braves are still playing quite well, but the Phils have made up some ground, at least in the wild card race. What's your take? Are the Phillies going to make it back to the postseason for a 5th straight year?
I do. Yeah, I believe so. Assuming this rotation stays healthy. And that's, again, a big if. I do think they make the wild card. I mean, look, this is what Major League Baseball wants, right? They wanted teams that may have fallen out of it to stay alive. They want fan bases to be watching these games in July, August, September. Even if your team's 13 games out, you still have something to play for. And I think Philadelphia fans should be happy that exists now, because I think that could be where the Phillies are. But they're going to be in that hunt for the wild card. I still think 85, 86, 87 wins is possible. I don't think they're going to get the 90. I don't know what they're going to do at the trade deadline. I don't know what pieces they have to move. That'll be an interesting thing as the season progresses. I don't know. Again, from a prospect standpoint, there's not a ton down there that I think is going to get you a whole lot. So if Dombrowski needs to do some shopping come July, I'm not sure what parts he's going to be moving. So it could be an interesting trade deadline for sure.
Well, you mentioned Dombrowski. We've let him off the hook here so far. I thought it was interesting that when Rob Thompson got let go, the fan base responses that I saw were more like Dombrowski needed to be the one to go, not Thompson, because he played it back and ran it back this year pretty much. What's your thoughts on Dombrowski and how this thing has gone?
So my thing with the running it back, right? I see both sides of this. If he would have let Schwarber walk, there'd be an uproar, right? What would you have done there? If he would have let Real Muto walk, okay, what's your catching solution? Because clearly Marchand is not it. Yeah. And Stubbs, he's serviceable, but he's not an everyday starting catcher either. So then what do? You go out, on the trade market and try and get Adley Rutschman or something and then change the whole roster that way. I don't really know what you would have done there. So those two moves right there, just getting Schwarber and Real Muto back, took up a lot of whatever resources he had. He went out and got Adolis Garcia, who, they wanted to have in the middle of the order as a power hitter. You got to say, look, even if he doesn't, hit you 30 home runs or 25 home runs, the guy is a hose in right field. So defensively is a significant upgrade over Castellanos out there. So I definitely think the clock is ticking for Dombrowski right now. I think, depending on the outcome of this season, maybe Middleton does make a move, right? It was awkward how the Cora situation came into play here, right? With Alex Cora, getting fired. And then that Sunday when Dombrowski reached out to him and, so people are already under the assumption that Cora is going to be the front runner for this job, come the offseason. So I don't know. Is that going to be Dombrowski's decision to make? We'll see. I think a lot of that's going to hinge on how this team performs this year. Yeah.
Patrick, I have two quick things for you before we wrap it up. One, did you see, I don't know if you could see the comments here that I just put back up. Our friend Jane, her great uncle, Jimmy Wilson, was a Phillies catcher and manager. How about that for your history book? There you go.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah.
And the other thing, before we let you go, let everybody know where they can find all your work. You do social media besides your website and all that. Let everybody know where they can find what you got going on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So obviously, PhiladelphiaBaseballReview.com is the website, and you can find us on Facebook also, Philadelphia Baseball Review on there, also on Instagram, and on Twitter, you can find me at P. Gordon, Gordon, PBR. Those are pretty much the spots. To look us up. We have a podcast also. You can find that on Spotify or Apple. And that's just look for the Philadelphia Baseball Review podcast. I've done this cool thing where I've started talking with some legendary journalists and writers and kind of getting behind the scenes from a journalistic standpoint. What's it mean to cover baseball and what's your, I had Bob Nightingale on, I had Paul Hagan on talking about sort of how do you go, what's your day at the ballpark look like? Who do you talk to first? What is your mental process of putting a story together. Talk to the founders of Baseball Weekly from USA Today. Some excellent stuff on there, and that's through our podcast that you can find on Apple and Spotify and all those different places as well. And again, that's Philadelphia Baseball Review Podcast.
And Patrick, coincidentally, Bill's favorite beer is also PBR.
Yeah, I won't forget that.
Yeah, I've heard there's a prep baseball report, there's the beer, and then there's professional bull riding is the other one I've gotten before. It's like,
a lot of PBRs out there.
Yeah, I'm not writing about bulls. So, yeah, that's it.